You're listening to the Haunting of Bly Manor Aftershow by Horror Movie Talk.
Hello, and welcome to Horror Movie Talk Special, The Haunting of Bly Manor Aftershow. On a normal episode of horror...
I mean, I can't tell a difference between your accent and Kitty's. Like, she says that our accent's terrible, but I don't hear it.
Yeah, sounds great to me. Yeah. On a normal episode of Horror Movie Talk, we would review and discuss one horror film in detail. For this special series of 10 episodes, though, we will be having an opinionated and accidentally funny discussion on each episode of The Haunting of Bly Manor. Your panel of expert hosts each week are the man who sits across from me, Dr. Bryce Hansen.
Hello, Governor.
Who holds a PhD in spookology, and me, Professor David Day, the foremost expert in scare no-nos. So, with no further ado, The Haunting of Bly Manor Aftershow with Horror Movie Talk. We have a great episode for you guys today. This is covering episode 2 of The Haunting of Bly Manor. I don't know why they didn't name the episodes, at least on the copies that we got. These episodes aren't named. They're just episode 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Right. They definitely have a theme per episode.
Yes, they absolutely, and they could have very good names.
Yeah, I mean, I think we should just name them by the character that they're focusing on.
Right.
Like this one would definitely be...
This is the Miles episode.
The Miles episode.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, yeah, this episode if you're going for real simplistic, you could call it Miles, you know. But so the way this show is going to work is we're going to start out by giving a brief synopsis of the episode, and then pretty much immediately we're going to get into spoilers and take a deeper dive into what we liked or hated about this episode. So with that, let's get into the synopsis of episode 2. Episode 2 starts off picking up directly on the end of episode 1. So it's basically Dani just got locked in the closet by the little kids, into Flora's closet. They asked her to go in there for a hat box or some she's like, yeah, no problem, I'll get your hat box. What an easy ask. And then she gets locked in her closet with the man in the mirror. And so in this episode 2, she has just come out of the closet. Wink. Wink. And thank you. And the kids are apologizing like they didn't just very intentionally shut her in there to begin with. They're like, how do
these things can't be helped?
Doors, how do these work? It's like, oh man, whoops, big oops on us. Like we locked you in there. We really intentionally ran at the door, closed it, jammed it shut, took the key out of the lock, walked away. And now we're back, and geez.
Wow.
What happened, right?
Boy, is our face red.
What? Yeah. Oh, man. So as I said earlier, this episode is one where Miles is much more fleshed out as a creepy character. We also get to learn a little bit about why he is the way he is. And you kind of gain some empathy for him to the extent that you can gain empathy for kind of what is the bad guy of the whole series.
He's conflicted.
Very.
We aren't told like what's really happening with Miles until later. But in this episode, you can tell he's really conflicted, and he's at his core a good kid.
Yeah, I mean, he's 10 years old. How bad could he be?
Right. It's not like you're really responsible for your own actions at 10.
Right. It's questionable at the very least.
Right.
So it's a pretty Dani heavy episode. We're also properly introduced to the gardener, Jamie, played by Amelia Eve. This episode also contains the spookiest scene in my opinion, in the first 3 episodes, which this episode ends with a rousing game of hide and seek before bed, which is a great way to put kids to bed.
Right. It's getting riled up right at bedtime.
Okay, guys, it's bedtime.
This is an idea that my mother-in-law would have. And then, like, it's 7:30. Let's play hide and seek. Okay, bye, guys.
Yeah, let's play tag. It's like, okay. Spoilers for those of you who don't have kids yet. Bad idea.
Spoilers for kids. That's how you spoil kids.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's the synopsis. Just briefly, we want to tell you about our website, horrormovietalk.com. There you'll find links to all of our social media. Check out our Facebook page, and you can find a link to our Facebook group where there's probably going to be a lot of discussion about these episodes as well.
Yeah, good point.
Check out our regular episodes where we post every Wednesday about a new horror movie each week. If you want to call and give us a voicemail or tell us how we're wrong or complain about how we don't do our research, call 682-253-4468. Also, you can check out our Patreon. There's a link from our website. You can find it on patreon.com/horrormovietalk. And thanks again for listening. So let's get into spoilers. Spoilers, governor.
So we start this episode, like I said, with Dani falling out of the closet as the kids open the door. And then we just launch directly into the muddy footprints all over the house, which appears to be the kids doing this.
Yeah, I mean, it looks, because the kids disappeared for a while.
Yeah, she has enough time to fall asleep in the closet.
Right, and so there's muddy footprints that lead basically into the house and then out of the house, I think.
So there's muddy footprints throughout the house.
And it's actually impressive. Like, how far would muddy footprints really go? Like, it's almost like they had a bag of mud that they stepped in, like, every 10 steps, because, really, like, it's an impressive amount of mud.
Are you suggesting that these aren't actually muddy footprints, that they're ectoplasmic
It's almost
footprints?
like they're supernatural footprints.
Oh. So as we're discussing the footprints throughout the house, Miles does a very 10-year-old, just spontaneous kid thing. And he runs up to Flora and he grabs, as if to draw attention away from the muddy. He's like, let's stop talking about these muddy footprints for a fucking second. He grabs the doll away from Flora, runs down the hallway, and throws the doll into the dirty laundry chute, which is, it's simultaneously a very kid thing to do. It's just like, look what I can do. And then also like, well, that was pretty intentional on his part.
Thanks, Dick.
Yeah, so
the laundry chute leads down to the basement, which is perfectly dreadful.
Yeah, it is. So Dani, the governess, says to Flora, hey, you know what? Let's go down and get your doll while your brother mops up this shit. And Miles is like, the fuck? The fuck I am going to mop this shit up? Because it's very clear that no one has told Miles to do anything other than just you do you, boo, for a long time. So he's not enthused about that.
When you live in a named manor that isn't your last name, I mean, there's not a lot of manual labor that you're probably doing, especially when you have a group of 4 servants, basically.
Yeah.
In The Turning, the much, much worse movie based on The Turn of the Screw, this character is like, basically like, hey, you work for me. So he doesn't She couldn't get him to do anything. In this one, they like don't make him completely spoiled. Like they are able to she is able to get them to do shit.
Yeah, Miles kind of looks at her with one of these. He's kind of like, "Are you eating though?" He's kind of like, "Yeah, bitch. You got some big words around here, but are you really the big shot here? Like, come on. We all know who's the man." So, Dani takes Flora down to the kitchen, which has the door to the cellar in it. And she's like, "Let's go down to the cellar, grab your doll that your dick brother just threw down here." And Flora's not having any part of that. She's like, nah, no, I don't like it. It's not a good place. I don't like it. It's perfectly dreadful. Mm-hmm. Let's not go down there. And so she's like, "I'll just stay here with Owen while he cooks us breakfast, and I'll chill here." Mm-hmm. And then Dani heads. She's like, "No problem." And it's a very spooky house thing. As soon as she walks through the door, right, she flicks the light switch, and of course the lights don't go on.
So here's a question. At what point does a spooky dark basement is no longer scary? Like what age would you be when spooky dark basement turns from like, well, there's definitely crocodiles down there that are going to eat me, to like, God damn it, I wish it wasn't so dark so I could see where things are.
I'm not 40 yet, so I'm going to guess somewhere in there.
Yeah, so like 48.
Right, maybe. Right. Yeah, that's my assumption.
Once you pay off the mortgage, the basement is no longer scary.
That's probably... There it is. Right, once you own the basement. Yeah, once it's actually yours and not the bank's.
Bitch, fuck you, Pennywise. Get the fuck out of my house.
Are you eating up? Are you eating up? Yeah, for real. Once you own that shit, then it's not scary. So she heads down there, and
the world's most creepy pile of dolls.
Is
down there.
Okay,
this is just basically their doll storage basement.
It's a doll storage facility. So the only thing creepier than the lights not coming on is there being a single light hanging from the ceiling.
A single bare bulb.
Right. And then you turn that on and I'll tell you why. You may be like, "Nah, now we got some light down here." Right. But it's a single source of light, right? So suddenly shadows are everywhere. Things are not well lit. They're just illuminated mildly. And shadows are being thrown all over the place. And off in the distance, in this totally okay, so there's a bunch of dolls piled up in a corner, and then there's random assortment of basement dwelling garbage, and then right in the middle of this this desert of concrete is this little doll that's sitting there. Right. It's almost a voodoo doll, basically.
It looks really creepy. Like, how would that get in the middle of the room? But actually, it makes sense.
Yeah,
like
it fell from the ceiling.
The chute. Well, the chute is like off to the side, but it's angled down towards the middle of the room.
Sure.
But it is literally like sitting up looking at her as she walks in. Like,
and that's a great shot.
I was expecting you.
Hello, I've been expecting you. So she does what any human being would do in this scenario, being introduced to this fucking terrifying, weird basement. She runs up, grabs it, and runs away really fast as she can. And as
she's all...
Yeah, so she runs away, and as she turns off the light and runs up the stairs really we are left with the shot of the dolls. Mm-hmm. And then something moves in the dolls. And I'm like, it's like, no. That was from Ghost Ship.
Ghost Boat.
Mm-hmm. So this reminded me a lot of the Haunting of Hill House. Remember?
Yeah, that basement in Haunted Hill House was fucked up.
Oh, that was the scariest. That was the scariest moment in any show I think I've ever seen.
It's so great. He goes down the dumbwaiter.
Season 1.
Like, oh yeah. It's not.
I got
this
chills.
is not the scariest basement that I've ever seen in fiction, but it is creepy because it's a basement, and then scary doll moves.
Yeah. So let's see here. So the scary thing moves. Yeah, it reminded me of the thing in the Haunting of Hill House, and then so I can't remember exactly what was said, but somebody basically says about Miles, he was being contrarian, and Flora's like, what's contrarian? What does that mean? And somebody in the kitchen's like, it means he was being a tit.
No, this is the story goes to Miles in boarding school, and it's in the classroom.
Oh,
His teacher.
Okay, so now we flash over. Now we're in the past. Mm-hmm. Miles is in school. He's in a boarding school for boys, seemingly.
Yeah, this is after his parents died, but before Dani is hired.
Yes.
Can't remember whether it's before or after Miss Jessel.
I don't think that we know that.
And then, so yeah, he's in class with like one of the world's like nicest, best priest teachers.
Yeah.
And
we assume
something. What was they?
They were talking about Legion.
Right.
They were talking about how the different apostles, so Matthew, Mark, Luke, all talked about the casting out of Legion from a man, or in Matthew in the so this is Bible shit, right? Mm-hmm. So you got you got three apostles who
there's four gospels, three of them talk about this specific story,
right,
and
about
there's
Legion.
Some inconsistencies, but the big parts are there, which is
so first of all, what is Legion? Legion is a demon from hell,
or a group of demons,
and who had possessed in two of the gospels. They suggest that Legion inhabited one man. In another gospel, I think Matthew, he suggests that Legion inhabited two men.
Yeah. And then it gets cast out into like a herd of pigs, which promptly hurl themselves over a cliff.
Right. And this...
And the important thing is that in the scripture, it talks about how the demon asks for basically permission from Jesus to go inhabit the pigs. Jesus is like, all right.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go fuck up those pigs.
Yeah. And so one of the kids asks the teacher.
Miles asks.
He asks the teacher, well, hey, what, like, why? No, this is one of the other kids asks the teacher, why does one of the apostles suggest, why does one of the other apostles have a different telling of the story? Suggest that it's different, and why is that? And the teacher says, well, he's a bit of a contrarian. He's. And then one of the kids asks, what does a contrarian mean? He says, well, and one of the kids has a little quip, and he's like, it means he was being a tit.
Boobs, boobies, tits.
And so then Miles asks the question, wait a minute, so do they all have to ask for permission? The teacher's like, what are you talking about? And he's like, do demons have to get permission to go into you?
He genuinely came up with like a great question that I've never thought of before.
Right.
Because the demon asks if it can inhabit the pigs, but why wasn't it inhabiting people? Like, it didn't ask Jesus' permission to possess these.
Did the people have to give their permission to the demon? And the teacher's basically like, great question, and yes.
Right. And Miles seems to really, really be interested in how possession works, because it seems like he might have intimate knowledge of it.
Yes. It's not either intimate knowledge of it, or suddenly something has piqued his interest. He's like, here's a way to get my parents back.
So this is... Okay, so... Now that I'm thinking about it, in the chronology, this is after Miss Jessel died. And before Dani comes, and after his parents died. Because he specifically says, like, why is it that the good ghosts don't come back?
Right.
Like, why is it always bad? So it's like, all right, this kid's seen some shit.
Right. Yeah, that is a really good point. Why don't the good ghosts come back? Bryce, why don't the good ghosts come back?
Oh, sorry. That was unintentional.
It was a bad ghost. So at this point, Miles gets a note from his sister. This is the first day of school, right? And he gets a letter from his sister, and we're not given immediate knowledge of what the note says. But the teacher's like, "You're a great kid. I'm so appreciative of these very intelligent questions that you ask." And then we cut to Miles having fun outside, basically recess, and he's climbing a tree. And he and his pal are climbing this tree together. And he outclimbs his buddy and then just jumps out of the tree. just kind of flings himself out of the tree. And it's like, what's going on? But you pretty quickly you start to learn, Miles is trying to get out of here.
Yeah.
He's trying every trick in the book to get expelled so he can go home.
Right.
And it's kind of weird because right after he jumps out of the tree, he's got his arm in a sling, and his buddy, it's nighttime, they're going to bed. His buddy on the top bunk is like, "Hey man, why'd you do that?" And he doesn't really have an answer. He's like, "I don't know. Felt like it.
I fell."
Yeah. And his buddy's like, "Well, in any case, I like you and you're a good guy. And we're friends now." And Miles is like, "Mm-hmm." Like it's almost no reaction at all. So it kind of sets up that Miles is not interested in being here, not interested in making friends, and he's really committed to this thought of let's go home.
And the teacher character is just like really great, really understanding, because he knows this kid's parents died. It's like the absolute, and probably that his au pair died. Just like, can you imagine how traumatized this little boy is? And he's just barely 10 years old. And he's seen like the deaths of 3 caretakers. Yeah. Basically. How unstable would that be?
It's intense for a little kid, and this teacher seems to understand.
Yeah, and he's trying to comfort him. He gives him like Bible verses that, relate to loss. And how does Miles repay him?
Okay. So now we're in the chapel, basically, that this is a boys' school, but it's a Catholic boys' school, so it's set at a Catholic church.
Yeah, and the priest is like basically
he's in the back
just
room.
Finished mass, and he's like taking off all his vestments and whatnot.
And so as he's hanging up his vestments in this side room, he hears like the big doors of the chapel open and close, and he's like, "What the fuck is that?" And he goes out there, and you get a little movement, right? You get to see a little bit of something.
There's something
scurrying around, but it's not within the field of view of the priest.
And you're all like,
"Oh, hey ho! I call it squirrel."
But it was not.
It was not a squirrel.
It was a small child-sized thing,
like a 10-year-old child.
Is there anything
some kind of traumatized 10-year-old child?
Dude, let's take a minute and like pay respects to how fucking creepy little kids running around at night is. I have a daughter who is 4 now, and she is deadly silent, and she can get places, and she's scared of being found at night. Mm-hmm. Like it's a scary concept. So it's this weird double build, for her. She's like, I can't, I want them to know that I'm awake, but I don't want to scare them, because if they get scared, it'll scare me, And so she like creeps up on you, and she's like,
either creep or scurry.
She gets right up in your ear, and she's like, "Papa," and you're like, "Ah!" And it's like, because she's snuck up on you from you're dead asleep, and she's like, "Daddy?" Oh my God! There's a ghost.
See, and you're always on high alert too. That's like the worst thing that she could do for you specifically.
She knows that now. She approaches mom, but it's the same thing for mom, because that's have lips on your ear and be like, "Mom," and you're like, "Ah!" So
I have a friend like back in the day talked about how. I can't remember how old this kid was. It's probably like 2 or 3, like old enough to like walk around, but not old enough to really be real vocal.
Yeah.
And he talked about it might have been a she. Anyways, the kid would really creep out the mother-in-law because she'd be sleeping in the guest room or whatever, and then she'd wake up with the kid just staring at her. Like silence.
Oh yeah.
Just imagine waking up and
I don't have to imagine, Bryce.
like a little.
I have memories.
Little kid just staring at you silently.
Oh man, it's so unsettling because then you're on high alert all the time.
Yeah.
For me, it would get scarier the more they touch me.
It's true. So something's running around in the chapel with the father, right? And he very good. And so he goes back to, he's like, yeah, must have been a squirrel. And he goes back to putting his vestments on the hangers. And then he hears something else and he goes back out there and it's not revealed. It's a pretty cool shot because it's just a close up on his face, right? As he goes back out into the chapel, you just see his shocked face. He sees something and it's alarming. And as he walks towards it, the camera pans out a little bit back away from his face, and we get this full view of this dove that has its neck broken.
Yeah, it's his dove.
Yeah,
from like his classroom.
Yes, he's got a dove in a little cage, and it's clearly dead and on the altar at the front of the chapel, and it's like, okay.
Yeah, so it cuts to Miles like in the office of like the headmaster with a bevy of other priests around, basically on trial for like, we're tired of your shit. But this priest that's his teacher is like really advocating for him, really like
He's
I totally understand, like this is, and then making it a teaching moment and like for just life and religion. He's like, this is. Like, I understand what you're going through, but like the first step, like what you have to do is to basically apologize. You have to have some kind of remorse or else like we're kind of scared for you,
Yeah. And
which is like, if you're a little kid killing animals, like that's a bad sign.
Right.
Like you got to nip that in the bud.
Right.
Because those little kids will grow up to literally be serial killers.
Yeah. It's not good to just be wantonly killing anything. But
I like it. You say wonton, like it's the Chinese food.
What's it supposed to be?
I don't know. I would say wantonly.
Wantonly? Okay, that's
wantonly.
Wantonly.
I like to.
Yeah.
It's like makes me crave savory, crispy things though.
Yeah, but
Are you eating though?
Are you? So they give him a moment, they're like, so apologize. And he looks like he's going to apologize. He looks remorseful. He genuinely looks very sad and remorseful. But then the things that come out of his mouth are horrific. He's like, I should have done more.
Well, yeah, he says like, I'm sorry
that I didn't do more.
And then everyone's like, oh, good. Thank you for being sorry that I didn't do worse things
to the bird and to, everybody here. I should have burned it. I should have
ripped the head off.
Right.
Like there's lots of things that I regret doing.
Right. And, but he does look remorseful that he has to say these things, so it's kind of sets up the humanity within him while he's saying these horrible things.
Well, yeah. I mean, he's saying like terrible things that's totally like ruining his chances of ever going to this school again. So of course they expel him. And then later,
but this is why I like this show is because you can see the conflict within him.
Right.
And you go,
something else is happening.
There's something else happening and you feel empathy for him while he's doing it. Even though he's saying these really terrible things, you're like, what's going on here?
Yeah. Like, and that's a credit to that little kid actor.
Yes.
Like, he really does a good job of selling that and selling the conflict.
And probably Mike Flanagan as well. He's like, look, you got to sell that you don't like saying this shit.
And then later, like, it cuts to him talking with his teacher. That's like, I mean, what the fuck? Like, I'm trying to help. And then Miles genuinely says he's sorry.
Yeah.
Like, you can tell he's like, I'm really sorry, about that. But then revealed the note from his sister is basically like, come back.
Yeah. The note from his sister is, the drawing that a 7-year-old little girl would do, which is her crying, a picture of, it's in crayon and it's of her crying, and it's basically like, please come home, Miles. I miss you, and there's scary stuff going on in the house. So the impetus behind Miles's, bad behavior is, I gotta get home to help protect my sister, and that's right. That's admirable, right? It's a good reason to do bad things, right? Kind of,
right. And just like most of the episodes, this kind of jumps back and forth between, quote unquote present time and the past,
right?
And so there's lots of stuff happening with Dani as well, so at some point, Flora comes to Dani with these glasses on that she found in her stuff, and Dani freaks out.
Well, yeah. Well, Flora's playing or having. She's putting away Dani's clothes for her.
Right.
And she's like, hey, I put your stuff away also. And she turns around and looks at Dani in the eyes, and she's got these glasses on her face. She's like, also, I found these glasses, but I found them like this. They have a crack in one of the lenses. And Dani can't handle that. It's hard. In the moment, while you're watching the show, you're like, why is she so stricken?
Well, it's obviously tied to the Mirror Man.
With who?
Yeah.
So, I mean, so these are the glasses that the man in the mirror wears.
Yeah, and we're not told the backstory.
We have no idea.
It's really building up these glasses and Mirror Man.
Dani can't handle it because, okay, first of all, the glasses have a crack in them, and she's like, can you excuse me, Flora? She runs away, and she just begins sobbing outside.
Uncontrollably, panic attack.
Yes.
Sobbing.
Yeah, and it's at this moment that the gardener, who's a lovely young lady, played by Amelia
Eve, yeah.
Approaches her. I think her name is Jamie in the show.
Yes.
And she approaches Dani, and she kind of starts cheering her up. She's like, hey, baby. How you doing? I know it's hard taking care of two kids, but you're doing a great job. And we're all struggling with something here,
right?
Kind of. And then there's a little bit of a spark.
Yeah, there's a little like pinky touch or something like that. Yeah. It's like,
a pinky touch.
That's when you know shit's about to go down. Is the pinky the most intimate part of your body? If you kind of just brush it against pinkies, that's worse than full-throated blowjob. It's like honk, honk, honk. I mean, you could do that to anyone. There's only special people that you could kind of just barely touch the pinky.
Oh, hey, yeah. So yeah, there's that. So
too far.
Yeah. So let me think here. So the next thing that happens is Miles. I can't remember what he's apologizing to Dani for, but he brushes her hair over her ear.
Oh yeah,
as he's doing it. And it's exquisitely disturbing because it's so fresh,
it's so off-putting.
Yeah, he's like, hey, I'm really sorry for the way I treated you, baby. And then he's like, takes his hand and just in a very familiar way, brushes this wisp of hair up over her ear. And he's like, and then he just walks away, and she's like, the fuck was it? You fucking fresh? What is going on? And he hands her some roses as he does this.
Right.
He's like, here's the bouquet, baby. It's my booby. And he's very fresh with all the females in the house.
Yeah.
Any female, but it's not like a respectful fresh. It's
it's full on rapey.
Yeah, it's like, hey, fuck you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Manipulative, really weirdness.
Yeah, yeah.
And then it kind of culminates in this moment where So this is where they play hide and seek, right?
So
Danny's
one more thing before that, we get to see the gardener who's cleaning up the rose bushes after Miles has picked all these roses. She's like, I'm gonna fucking murder this kid. I'm gonna murder him. And Dani kind of talks her down. She's like, hey, he's just a kid, just don't. It's not a big deal. Don't worry about that.
Right.
Much. So yeah, now we get to
the best idea ever. Let's bedtime. Right before bedtime. You guys are so good. Let's play hide and seek.
Yeah, hide and seek before bed, and man, immediately everything in my body was like, please no, please no, please no,
idiot.
Don't. First of all, this is not going to get the kids to go to bed, and second of all, this.
But also specifically these kids, and specifically this house,
and specifically at night. And it's dark, and it's just dead silent. The kids, obviously, they scurry off as fast as they can and hide in the dead of night, in the total silence, in this giant mansion.
Yeah.
And Dani is basically walking around this house for like 5 minutes. Just like... And there are things moving through the house, and it's like, oh, God. This is, bar none, the scariest part of this first 3 episodes for me.
Yeah.
Can you think of a part where...
I'm trying to think of... I don't know. I can't remember.
As Flora is waiting to be found...
I think the most effective part for me is in the first episode when Flora is, like, looking behind Dani. That's, like, just the most off-putting thing. I'm just like, jeez.
See, for me, it's this moment when Flora's hiding, and she's waiting to be found, and she's humming the Willow Wally song, and this thing... is right behind her, like 10 feet behind her, writhing around on the floor.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, this is the first, like, really big moment.
It's writhing around on the floor. It's some huge human thing, and it's just, like, whipping around on the floor, kind of, like, cackling the song along with her. And when it starts getting too loud, Flora, in a very familiar way.
It's like, hey, would you please shut the fuck up?
Can you shh? Hey, be quiet. And the thing just pipes down. It's like, it's so fucked up that these kids are so familiar with all this nasty garbage that's going on. And then
yeah, go ahead.
Miles
runs up behind Dani and gets her in like a naked chokehold.
Yeah. Rear naked choke, and is like, hey, I found you, bitch. And she's like, oh.
She's like,
and then
like, please.
He's like, time for you to find, time for me to seek, or something like that.
Or like, something like he's gonna count down from 10. She's got to hide, and it's like really super creepy. Like genuinely, he was like had her in a good chokehold, and she was genuinely starting to like. Probably see like little tiny stars in her vision.
Yeah. And at this point, so he runs away. She's looking for him. She's angry. And then she sees someone outside, like a tall man, like the man that was on the balcony in the first episode. She sees him walking by and she's like, what the fuck is that? She goes outside. She's looking around. She's like, I'm going to call the police. And then she looks in the window inside and she sees Miles standing there. And he's like, I don't feel so good.
This is like a great example of why Mike Flanagan is a great director, because he can genuinely just full on show a ghost and it's still scary.
Yeah.
Like it's still like the situation is so off putting that it's not like, oh, well, we just blew our load now. Like we saw it. That's it.
Right.
Like this was, she looks out the window and it's like kind of a blurred, kind of like a bathroom type window, but he's close enough. He's like right next to the window to where you can see all of the features except like the specifics, and it's super creepy. Like someone's literally just outside your bathroom window or whatever.
Right.
And then,
so Miles doesn't feel so good. He falls down, and that's the end of, basically the end of the second episode. Hey, thanks again for listening. Make sure to subscribe and leave a rating for us on Apple Podcasts. That helps us out a lot. This has been Horror Movie Talk's presentation of The Haunting of Bly Manor Aftershow. If you'd like to support us, you can do so by heading to our website. That's horrormovietalk.com. And from there, you can find links at the top of the page on, if you're shopping on Amazon, just click through that link at the top of the page. It says buy stuff on Amazon. And then anything you buy following clicking on that link will send us a little bit of taste of that sweet cash that we love so much.
Get a little jingle jangle of change.
And also, if you'd like to become a patron and support us directly, you can do so same way, or head on over to patreon.com/horrormovietalk. Make sure to share these episodes with a friend if you'd like to have a detailed discussion with them about The Haunting of Bly Manor. And make sure to check out our resident artist, Dustin Goebel. He is a professional artist who fucks so hard. He also takes commissions for artwork from HMT fans, so make sure to contact him at dgoebel00. That's at DGOEBEL00 on Instagram, and make your artistic dreams come true. Tell him HMT sent you. Again, if you'd like to call the show and tell us that we're wrong or that we are right, or that you want us to do this or that, call 682-253-4468. And with that, thank you so much, and watch episode 3 of The Haunting of Bly Manor.
For me, it would get scarier the more they touch me.